In our film opening, the genre we chose was a psychological thriller. Our storyline was based on the Pretty Little Liars series because the genres were similar. A typical thriller movie contains a chain of bad events building tension and suspense for the climax. Thrillers show justice and injustice fighting against each other with an overall feel of unease. Like typical thriller movies, we show the audience our story through the suspense of an unknown phone call. During the planning stages of our filming, we found inspiration of a phone call scene in the Scream. This inspired us as it had a clear scene of a girl talking on a phone. This was a dramatic scene as tension was built because we don't know who is on the other line. The phone call scene was similar in terms of what the characters were saying. However, we developed the idea by increasing the suspense as our unknown character rings both her office phone and a personal one. When comparing the two scenes, we have succeeded in having a stereotypical female character being represented as vulnerable. This is done by having her in an isolated environment away from everyone, adding to the suspense. The inspiration for our female character in our film opening came from Aria Montgomery in the Pretty Little Liars series and Jordan Turner in The Call. We combined the two character traits to make one character for our film opening. Throughout the Pretty Little Liars series, we see Aria to be one of the 4 victims of an unknown person threatening them. We used Jordan's intelligent side to make this character better. This allowed us to develop the idea of the Pretty Little Liars series as the female characters both reacted in the same way. Like most thriller films, it is usually set in their everyday life. Therefore, the costume was not as important as it would be in an action film. We developed the idea of it being in an everyday setting as the unknown character is watching everything she does and is always one step ahead of her. We succeeded in doing this by showing a voyeuristic shot of her in the toilet to show that he is watching her. Overall, I think that we mainly followed the main conventions of a thriller film, as our opening was slow-paced so that it built tension for the climax.
In our film opening, we have 2 characters. We have a female character and we have a male character, the character we never see in the film opening. Our female character is a young working-class woman, as shown to the audience through her costume and actions. For example, the lady in the office is shown to be wearing formal clothing, conveying to the audience that she's working in a certain profession. When she answers the call, she answers with a calm tone of voice and formal dialogue. It is understood that she is working in a call center. Her body language, whilst having a conversation with a customer on the phone, also shows to the audience that she's a working class lady. On the other hand, the male character is not shown in the film, and therefore the audience can only guess of which class he could be through his voice. The element of mystery allows the audience to guess what class he could be in, as all the other judgmental aspects are not shown to the audience. A stereotypical convention shown in our film opening is that the victim is female. This idea was also used on Scream, as the victim was also female. Having this female victim emphasizes vulnerability and will also able to build up tension throughout our film through the use of her body language and her actions. Another stereotypical convention that we decided to use in the film was the male voice. Stereotypically, a male tends to be more dominant over the woman, whereas a woman is shown to be vulnerable. The male voice emphasizes power despite not seeing the character. This allows us to portray an impression of who he could be, and his deep, threatening voice is one aspect that allows us to build tension.
Our production company and distribution company would be Stage 6 Films and Dimension Films. This is due to the fact that we did in-depth research in what kind of production and distribution company we could use for our own media product. Stage 6 Films is a production company owned by Sony Pictures Worldwide and was founded in 2007. Over the years, they have become known for small independent films with small budgets, therefore they are ideal for our own media product. They have also produced The Call, which is one of our main inspirations, alongside Scream. Stage 6 Films have produced many films with a similar target audience such as The Call. By using them as a production company, it's realistic that they would produce our own media product. The Call, which is one of our main inspirations and is produced by Stage 6 Films and distributed by Warner Brothers. This movie also shares similarities to our own film, such as the thriller suspense convention. Dimension Films is an independent production company which have distributed many films with the same category genre as ours, so it would be realistic that they would distribute our own film opening. They were formerly owned by Walt Disney Studio and now owned by the Winston Company. They are the distribution company behind the successful franchise such as the Scream and the later Halloween films. They have distributed Scream, which is another main inspiration for our film opening. Scream, which was chosen to be our second inspiration, inspired us as it had a very clear scene of a girl talking on the phone. This dramatic scene brought suspense and tension as the audience don't know who's on the other line, similar to our film opening.
As a group, we decided our opening would be suited to both males and females over the age of 12A. We thought this was acceptable as although it is a thriller, the scenes are not gory and are quite psychological, unlike the movie Scream, which was one of our inspirations that had the age rating of 18 due to the violence and swearing. The thriller conventions in our product are mild and do not show any physical action, making it acceptable for a lower audience age. The opening would appeal to young males as we have used an attractive female character to play the main role, who is also a young adult, which would appeal to many of our audience. Our product would also appeal to young females through the relatable main character, who is shown to be as quite fashionable through her costume, which young girls could aspire to. We also believe that our opening would appeal to a younger generation and would be relatable through the use of modern technology, with the phone calls and text shown towards the end. This opening would also appeal to a working class as our main character is an ordinary woman doing her job. This could be relatable for many people.
When thinking of an idea for our own film opening, we decided to go upon audience feedback when doing our questionnaire. We asked the target audience which conventions do you admire in a thriller film. The majority of people the questionnaire was given to said suspense and psychological. We also asked what is your favourite genre. From a range of answers such as action, adventure, comedy, horror, and thriller suspense, the majority of people said thriller suspense. By asking this question, we finalised that we would be making a thriller suspense media product. We also asked a question from which we would get to know our target audience by asking which of the following films have you seen. From a range of answers such as The Call, Scream, Phone Boot, Taken, and A Stranger Calls, Scream was one of the most popular, which is one of our main inspirations. We included these responses into the media product by making the opening inspired by Scream by the music and the use of camera work. We attracted our target audience by the deep and intense voiceover of the unknown caller. We also increased the volume in some areas of the voiceover to focus on some lines. The non-diegetic soundtrack also worked alongside the voiceover as it got louder when the call gets more and more personal. This creates tension, attracting audience members, and creates a perfect atmosphere for our film opening. The soundtrack, which starts off slow and mysterious, changes when the character starts to get repeated calls and how they change from our work office phone to a personal phone, attracting the audience and making them ask questions. For example, who is this unknown figure on the phone? As the film opening goes on, the music builds up and gets darker, emphasizing her uneasy feelings.
Through the process of constructing the product, we have learnt many things about various technology. For example, for filming we used 2 different cameras to give 2 different types of looks. Firstly, we used a Fujifilm X10 to give a professional and clear look, as most of the shots displayed facial expressions which had to be clear for the viewer to see these emotions clearly and to be able to react and empathize with the character. Whilst using this camera, we also used a tripod to give smooth pans and stable shots throughout the opening. Secondly, we used a flip camera as the quality was not very clear. This enabled the shot to look much more like a voyeuristic shot, as they're usually quite unclear and basic, making it seem much more realistic. We also used a smartphone to record the voiceovers, which played a big part in our film, as the narrative used was based around this phone call. We decided to use a smartphone as the audio recorded through any other means did not sound as well. For the credits of our film, we tested out After Effects. However, as a group, we decided the outcome did not suit the product we were constructing and decided to leave it looking much more simpler and did not want to overcomplicate it. The main editing software used was Final Cut Pro, as it is quite straightforward and easy to use and to edit, as the timeline displayed everything in a structured and chronological way, building continuity throughout the scenes. Final Cut Pro was useful for color correcting with the feature Match Color, as the original footage was quite dark and poorly lit. Final Cut Pro was also useful for when adding non-diegetic music to build suspense, which was taken from royalty-free websites such as incompetech.com and YouTube. Final Cut Pro was also useful for when adding sound effects, for example the phone call and text sounds, to make the scene more convincing.
When looking back at our preliminary tasks, we felt that we have developed and enhanced our filming and editing skills. When looking back at the mise-en-scène in our preliminary task, we saw that we did not pay much attention to the lighting. This caused the footage not to flow as well. When compared to our film opening, we made sure that the lighting was similar and not too dark. We could change this due to the colour correction on Final Cut Pro, which made the shots evenly lit, making the transition from one shot to another much better, adding continuity. When looking back at our camera work in the preliminary task, we realised that we only used 3 simple shots, which were mid-shot, long shot and a close-up. However, when comparing it to our film opening, we see that we used a variety of shots and camera movements. This helped us show different perspectives and look at the characters in different ways. For example, we used a voyeuristic shot to make our main character look weak and vulnerable. We also used a low angle for when she was walking out of the bathroom. Furthermore, looking back at our editing skills in the preliminary task, we see that it wasn't done too well, especially the match on action. Having that in mind, it helped us make sure that in our film opening we did not do this, and so the continuity flows much better. Also, having done the preliminary task, it helped us use Final Cut Pro much better, as it gave us some sort of experience